welcome to the Confused Millennials vlog series on inspiring millennials. I'm super excited today to have Teo Rockson with us. He has so many projects going on, so I'm going to let him share with you everything he's working on right now.
Hey, Rachel, thank you for having me on. And yes, I am indeed Ty Rockson. So she described me as a multi-passionate person. So that's kind of what I do. But my overall mission and the umbrella of everything I try to do is to inspire the next set of global leaders. And I do that by educating them on what it's like to communicate across cultures and also showing them what it's like to pursue their passions in careers that they love. So one of the companies I'm involved with is called Branded You, and it's a career discovery site for millennials. And essentially, what we do over there is inspire millennials to discover and pursue their passions by providing them expert career advice from professionals and brands that they love and trust. So that's Branded You, and with UID Media, which is the media platform that I'm CEO of, is we essentially show what it's like to communicate across cultures, whether it's inviting leaders and professionals and businesses from different parts of the world to show how they built businesses, how they communicated across cultures, how they were able to build bridges instead of walls. And it spawned into a few podcasts. I have three podcasts now, and I'm working on the fourth. But the whole mission of everything that I do is essentially to make sure that as millennials seize positions of power, that they know exactly what they need to do in leadership positions and also end up in jobs and careers that they love. So,
I,
yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I love that, you and I have talked about this before where, with social media, with the internet, there's no real global boundaries anymore. You can go ahead and jump on a call with somebody in Taiwan. You can jump on a call with somebody in Australia.
Exactly.
And a big
Exactly.
piece in a lot of Teo's work that you'll see is he uses a term called third culture kids. So why don't
Yes.
you tell everybody what that is?
So a third culture kid. That's good. Thank you for bringing that up. She's such a great interviewer. A third culture kid, or TCK, refers to people that spent the formative periods of their lives outside their parents' cultures. I personally am Nigerian, but my dad's a diplomat, and that means that I grew up in five countries and four continents.
It's
And
amazing.
thank you. But what happens with that is that you tend to identify with several cultures where you're not just one, you're many, and all of that fuses into your identity. So one culture could be your parents' culture, the second could be your culture, and the third could be a mix of every other thing. And when you say third culture kid, some people have said a global nomad and all that, but that's essentially what it was. And I remember finding that term because it was very comforting because I was like, wow, now I can define myself because everybody used to ask me, you're Nigerian, but you don't sound like a Nigerian. And then there's a British pronunciation there, but you sound more American. I'm like, look, this is how I grew up. So, but yeah, it was really out of that premise, the TCK thing that I said to myself at a time when I was figuring out what I wanted to do. I was like, all these experts in the industry, in an industry I'm passionate about, which is entrepreneurship, say they have 20 years of experience, blah, blah, blah. And I can't compete because everyone seems to have the infinite amount of experience. I don't have any cachet. So I was like, well, I can say I have 20 years of experience being a TCK.
I love
And,
that. I
and
love that. It's creating your
yeah,
own expertise.
exactly. And I was like, out of that TCK, I can actually use that lens to show what it's like to build businesses and to pursue your passions and connect. Like you said, we live in a digital world and global world. So that's where the adventure really started.
I love that because, you and I have talked a little bit about how the confused millennial even came to be, and it came from me kind of realizing that a lot of the experts online and things like that, their 20 years may not have been a, clear linear path of 20 years, and they may have taken a step back, looked at their life and said, oh, hey, this is something I've been living, this is something I've been doing, so I'm going to call
Exactly.
myself an expert now. And so I love that you found that difference in yourself going into your tagline here. Use
Uh,
that difference in yourself to make a
I,
difference.
I was just about to say, did you say difference? Because I'm using my difference to make difference. Yeah, that is the fact that I use it to make difference. It's a funny story with that. So when I started doing this TCK thing, my idea was, the story was I moved to New York City because I left a job that I hated, and I was like, fine, I'm gonna move to your city, get my MBA, and sort of used 2 years to figure it out, make New York my campus. My parents are like, oh, you're getting an MBA, and I'm secretly just trying to figure out what I need to do. Because as a kid, I wanted to be, and I'm still, that's my goal, to be the male version of Oprah. She's like my biggest inspiration. I was like,
You get a car.
you get a car, you get a car. So I was like, how am I going to figure this out? I moved there and I started, the TCK thing, and then yeah, the idea for the podcast came at an event that I was at with Ariana Huffington, and she made the joke about how, she's got a strong Greek accent, and at one point in her life, she wanted to change her accent because she felt that would make her more acceptable. And then someone said, no, that's your identity, and that's who you are. And she was joking about how her kids still make fun of her accent. But I remember thinking, that's a funny joke, and I recognize that. But then I was like, I wonder if it's a platform for people to look like they're not supposed to sound and sound like they're not supposed to look. I mean, everybody says I'm African American, but I'm just African in America. So I was like, maybe I should just create a podcast for that. And I had just come to terms with the word TCK. So I started interviewing people. I used Twitter under the hashtag TCK. I got like 100 people and said, hey, we're both TCKs. You want to come talk about something? and that sort of led to the whole idea. And then when a song called Am I Wrong by Nico and Vince came out 2 summers ago, these were 2 black guys who happened to be Norwegian, but I remember thinking to myself, I didn't think they were Norwegian, because you think Norway, you think tall, blonde, blue eye. Mm-hmm. It's like the lyrics is talking about not staying in a box and doing your own thing and not listening to society thing. And on the other aspect, I mischaracterized them. I thought they were like, African American as well, the way people do to me. So I basically used the lyrics to write a blog post about the importance of not listening to society's standard of what you should do and actually following your passion. And then in the last sentence, I said, I think we all need to learn how to use our differences to make a difference. Oh. And I left it alone to hit publish. And then all of a sudden, I started getting people resonating with that. And then I started saying to myself, that could be a good tagline.
It is. It's like creeped into my brain where I'll start saying it to people in like workshops, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's such a good, it's amazing. Because I think we all have, something that maybe we're shameful about, or something that, just like how you said, Ariana Huffington with her Greek accent and stuff, like there's some, I imagine there's some shame around that. And we all have that something, even if we are living in the culture that we grew up in. Right. And it's a way to really just shine a light on that and, welcome everybody and say like, no, this is something I'm proud of. This is something that makes me unique. This is something that I can use to inspire other people. Right. And, I absolutely love that. And that's why when I thought of the Inspiring Millennial series, I automatically thought of Teo, because this guy is living it, doing it on a daily basis. I just see he hustles harder than anybody I've ever come across. He found me on Twitter, and like I've just become obsessed with him ever since. So people that say Twitter's dead, like you still can find awesome people on Twitter.
Yes, you can. Hey, look, thank you for those kind words, but it's the same with you. I mean, I saw you, and I've been, following your work as well, and I love your story. And even when you were on my podcast, it was such a great conversation, because you can tell that you're really passionate about making an impact, and that's something that I resonate with. So, yeah.
I appreciate that. So when would you say, because I mean, you've been doing blogs and podcasts and all of these different media platforms for so long, when would you say, how did you even get started? I know you wanted to be Oprah, but at what point did you take that first step?
No, hey, well, this requires going back in time. So when I was 12, 11, I was living in Burkina Faso at the time. As a kid, we all loved the shows that were at the time. I still don't think Disney, Nickelodeon compares to back then. But back then,
totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, back then we had the Lizzie McGuire, the Hey Arnold, the all that. Keenan Kel, everything, all that. I used to watch all that, and I remember that was my routine. I'll come back from school, watch a bit of all that. I used to watch Powerpuff Girls. So
I didn't even watch that.
Yeah, I know you didn't, but I watched it like it was like a Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and
Disney Channel.
Disney Channel, and then one of the things that was also in my routine was the Oprah Winfrey Show. For some reason, I just obsessed with it. I was 11, 12, and I just remember always feeling that I could see a bit of myself in each of her guests. And I was fascinated with her ability to make me feel that from millions of miles away. Like, how can she do that? And how can I feel disinspired at such a young age? And I remember then I was like, I want to be able to do this at some point, So when I moved back to Nigeria and I came back to do high school, I was still trying to figure out. I was like, I don't know what my path would be there, but I want to inspire someone. So I tried. Maybe I wanted to be a diplomat like my dad. I was like, but I didn't feel passionate about it. So I came to university in Virginia to do law because my dad said, well, if you do law, you can do anything. Hated it. After I had like my first class, I was like, this is not going to be me. I enjoy watching Law and Order and Suits and all that stuff, but they're better for me on TV than in real life because this is not me.
Yep.
Then got into marketing, still trying to figure that out, and I loved marketing. I just didn't know how to make a career out of that. But I started really building my digital presence as a social media, influencer. So I was like, I'm this 19-year, 20-year-old kid, and if I'm going to compete, I should have X amount of followers, so then they will notice me. So that was like my whole mindset then. And then I started applying for jobs when it was time for me to graduate. I applied to over 85. They all said no. And I was like, dang, no one wants
Yeah.
anything that I have to offer. I mean, I spent all this work building like 20,000 followers on Twitter. No one even cares. Uh, and that was 2011, and after that, I just I fell into this job. I got the first job that gave me an offer because I was first of all I'm a foreigner. And I'm thinking I better get a visa or I'm going back anyway, and it's a job, appreciate it. So I went there for social media marketing, and they quickly told me that I was going to be doing sales and I had to make a quota of 10,000 a month. I was like, wow, great. Now I learned how to do sales, but I've never sold anything in my life. So. Small company, college town, and I just went through the motions. I found myself going through that, and I eventually did all I needed to do. But I outgrew the company quickly because you started to see my personality, and I'm like really lively. But it was such a sleepy area, and I outgrew it, and I was just from feeling unhappy. And a few incidents happened. One was I woke up in cold sweats one evening. It had to be 3 a.m. or so. And I remember saying, this is what the next 60 years of my life is going to be. And I had a hard time going back to sleep after that, but I still wasn't brave enough. I was like, there's no other path. I mean, this is just what I have to do. And then the second thing that happened was my mentor had moved to New York City to take a job, and I always wanted to go to New York City. So, and I found an excuse because I'm a big basketball fan. LeBron James was playing with the Heat at the time. So there was a Heat Knicks game. I was like, game. So, so I used that excuse, went there, and once I landed in New York City, I gotta tell you, Rachel, I felt more alive than I had felt in a long time. It was every cliche that you could think about New York City, the hustle, bustle, dirt, whatever. I was like, this is where I need to be. Like, because I had been like going through the motions, doing paperwork and all that stuff, and I had forgotten what it was like to be alive. And I started getting reminded about possibilities. So, that was the seed to move to New York City, started getting there. But I was still a little timid. This is something that a lot of people deal with, is where you're afraid of taking that leap. When you're hanging on like the trapeze, you're like, I'm going to jump here, but I'm still holding here. So I was doing that. And then I moved back. I was like, okay, I know a place where I could go. And then I think 2 months later, it was August 2012. I was driving to the same place of work that I hated. And all of a sudden, on the highway, this car cuts my lane to half. Boom. So I'm spinning, and then I hit the left guardrail. Boosh. Then the right guardrail. Boosh. And it's strizzling. And then the car, smashes into another guardrail again, the left one again. And then the car lifts up, and I think I'm about to flip over the bridge. And I'm 22 at the time. And I'm saying to myself, Tayo, I haven't done anything. You haven't done anything you said you want to do. This is it. And you didn't do anything. And I just remember tragically trying to like hit the brakes hard and just get out of the car. And miraculously, I did. The car got totaled, 3-car accident. And I got out of the car unscathed. And I was thinking to myself, I am the luckiest person in the world. I just almost died. And I was like, that was it. I was like, no more. I'm going to take whatever risk I need to take because I've never done anything I wanted to do. I wanted to be like the male Oprah. I didn't do anything. So I said I was going to quit my job. I was going to move to New York City. The only path for me to do was to get an MBA. So I was like, that would appease my parents and not have them off my back for 2 years. And I'll be in the media capital of the world. So I moved to New York City and I just started creating content. I didn't know what the first content would be. I was like, I'm going to interview millennial entrepreneurs. Started doing that. That faded off quickly because there was a lot of competition and I couldn't really find a passion to continue to do. But I started to do that. But it just reminded me like, wow, you said you wanted to be like Oprah. this is interviewing. You like interviewing. You need to find a niche.
Yep.
So I kept doing that. I kept writing, and I started getting reawakened with my original goal. And that just led me to, that fateful day at Ariana Huffington's event where I was like, finally found something that I can talk about, that I can spend, 6, 7, 8 hours after work and still work on without feeling tired. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm passionate about interviewing. I know I'm passionate about telling people stories, but the story and the lens that I want to use is my authentic self. I was
Mm-hmm.
originally trying to be like every other entrepreneur interviewer, other people, but I'm the only person that can say I grew up in 5 countries and 4 continents, and my experience allowed me to see the world this way. This is why I see. This is why I think businesses should be this way. This is why I think millennials should think in this global and digital way. And that came as authentic as anything that I've ever done before. And it really started to snowball. The podcast led to different opportunities, and people started to get more aware of the term. People started ranking it. And then I was like, this is what happens when you follow the process. But
Yeah.
at the time, I was like, this is just annoying to figure out what I want to do.
Well, I think
That,
it's
that's
I mean, I think it's so cool because here's somebody that, almost died. Like that's the reality of it. And I think that that's such an important question. It's a question I ask myself a lot too, is if I died tomorrow, what am I leaving behind? Did I live a life that I'm proud of?
yeah.
And I too struggled like just putting out stuff, not really knowing how to brand it, not knowing how to find that voice, and that can be really discouraging. And you know that, you just spoke to it. I mean, you had 25,000 Twitter followers, and you thought you were going to be a social media influencer, but you had didn't sound like much to say. Where
Nothing. Nothing.
yeah. And so, I think that's also one of those things where I talk a lot about if you are trying to become an expert in your field and things like that, being able to grow a social media following. But if you grow a following and you don't know what it's branded for or what your niche is or the purpose behind everything you're putting out there is, you are going to have a hard time, and you're living proof of that.
You're so right, Rachel.
And I mean, I love that when you finally embraced your voice and embraced that difference is when everything started coming out of the woodwork for you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think society has a funny way of defining success where they might say, "Oh, we want you to be different," but then the standards of success are like this tried old formula. Like, no, you have to do it this way. You have to do it that way. And I think the ones that change the world are the ones that think that they're crazy enough to do so. And those ones are usually the ones that are like, "I'm not doing what you said."
Yeah.
Say what you say, what you will about Steve Jobs, and there are many good and bad things to say, but his method of like leadership, however extreme it might have been, but he thought he could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk, same thing. All these people that felt like they needed to buck the status quo and move on to something was, that's where it started. And then it wasn't necessarily the easiest journey to get there, but it was the fact that they were brave enough to do that. And I think being brave enough to be yourself in today's world is an unspoken truth, but it's one of the most important things that you can do in terms of realizing your passion today.
It's so true. And I think that, one of the things that's super cool about you is if you guys don't follow Teo on Snapchat, make sure you follow him on Snapchat. What is your Snapchat name? I know I follow you, but I don't actually know your name.
I'm Ty Rockson and everything. So
I'll
TayoRockson.
Yeah, I'll type that up for you guys. But Teo is one of the few people that's not like a celebrity on Snapchat that I actually enjoy following because he'll give you life advice, he'll give you motivational stuff, he'll give you business tips, but it's so authentic to who he is where you don't feel like he's trying too hard. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that he's really embraced that difference and you're brave enough to say, like, I'm going to be different. I'm going to talk about the fact that sometimes I have this accent, sometimes I have that accent, and
Yeah,
sometimes I don't even know what accent it just came out
I
of
have
me.
no idea. Yeah.
And so I absolutely love that. And his Snapchat game is on fleek to take that phrase back and make it cool again. I
No,
mean, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm honored. I don't even know how to take all this praise. I
And I
appreciate the
haven't
kind.
even gotten to Instagram with you yet.
Ah, thank you so much.
No,
Thank you so
but
much.
seriously, so what would you say are the TV shows that have influenced you and guided you to the man you are today? Because I know if there's anybody that can compete with me in television watching, it's probably you.
It's funny. I know you know what the answer is, but it is One Tree Hill, and no, everybody says. No one, everybody is always surprised because when Montreal came, it came around the same time with the OC, which I like, but I
OC's
was
going
far.
up on Hulu. Sorry, side note.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is, but at the time, One Tree Hill was not, it wasn't the same. People were like on the OC train and more in the One Tree, but I loved One Tree Hill because, and I still do. I've watched it over 15. I still watch it. I'm a little obsessed. But the time it came, I mean, I don't know, I had to have been 11 or 12, and I remember watching the first episode because I'm a huge basketball fan. Basketball drew me,
Wait,
and
how old are you?
26 now.
Oh, okay, you're my age. Sorry, because you said 11, 12, and I was 11, 12 when it came out.
Oh yeah, we're the same age. Yes, millennials. But
Sorry.
no, no, this is great. No, but it came at a time, and I just remember connecting with the character Lucas
Mhm.
because I was a very whatever ugly duckling story you can think of, that was me because I used to have the utmost amount of confidence before moving, but to become faster. But here I was in an American international school with a very strong Nigerian accent. We didn't know how to play many sports except soccer, and I was just trying to find my way.
Mhm.
I feel inferior. There's people like from 20 million countries, and they already have all these cliques. And I remember feeling like some sense of belonging, like this Lucas kid who was like the guy was father abandoned him, and he was
Mhm.
just trying to find his way, and he wasn't popular. So I just resonated with it because I love basketball, and I came there. And then a lot of the quotes from the
Mhm.
stories and the storylines were just things that I felt like were great life lessons. And
Mhm.
I remember thinking Lucas being a moral compass is something that I identify with because I always want to be a moral compass and I always want to do something. And also the show's unashamed way of showing that it's okay to mess up,
Mhm.
and as long as you sort of own up to it and do things and learn from it. So I resonate with it, and it was 9 seasons in. It went 9 seasons long, and I loved. I grew to like everyone. I loved Brooke's character a lot. I loved the character development, and then Julie, yeah, and then Julian came on because I'm extremely corny. So I was like, man, this is the guy. This is so. For me, it was that I watched a lot of TV, but even Parenthood recently, that was a
Yes.
show I loved. Yeah, Adam Braverman is exactly. I'm the oldest of three boys, and whatever problems that people have, it's like, oh yes, Tayo, can you handle this? Or like everybody just comes to me with it. Even parents and like family
Mhm.
members. I'm like, I'm not even of the right age, but sure, I will help out. Don't know what I'm saying, but me to listen to you, I listen to you. But his ability to have resolved and have a kid with Asperger's, a wife who went through cancer, all these crazy dynamics in the family, and still be able to stay grounded. That's something I've always admired, and in characters that I love and identify with in stories. Those are the things that I admire. Ability to stay grounded while helping people and being selfless. That's something that I wrote. So yeah, Parenthood and One Tree Hill.
I love Parenthood and One Tree Hill. So off of kind of Adam Braverman's life point of the struggles he went through,
Yeah.
in getting to be this 26-year-old, you're traveling all the time. You're working on your business. You're working on other businesses. What has been the greatest struggle or challenge for you
You
in
know,
business or life?
I think both the idea of being multi-passionate. I mean,
Mhm.
the whole theme for me is use media to change the world. But I think growing up, there was always that goal, that idea that you had to be passionate about one sort of thing, and it's if you're not passionate about if you're passionate about too many things, it's like you're losing focus or something like that. And for me, it was finding the universal theme.
Mhm.
And that's why when I introduced myself initially, my whole goal is to inspire the next set of global leaders,
Mhm.
by encouraging them to use the difference to make a difference. But when I still go through this and I'm building businesses and stuff like that, I'm always struggling with, okay, am I losing focus? Am I my multi-passionate? Is that taken away from something else? How can I drive them together? And I think that's something that I struggle with daily, but I also think it's something that the public narrative about entrepreneurship doesn't tackle enough. Because I think it's
Mhm.
possible to have multi-passionate uh, businessmen and businesswomen, but I think I don't think there's enough literature talked about how to do it right. So
So how
I
do
struggle
you
about
do
the
it right?
Ah, thank you. But it's been through a lot of trial and errors, and I think the other
Mhm.
thing that I've struggled with was I know you think I'm very vocal with my voice. It's really finding my voice because a lot of times I've actually dumbed down some things I've said because I was like,
Mhm.
no one wants to hear from me. I'm like, why do people want to listen to me? So it's finding
Mhm.
that confidence in my ability to to speak up, which is interesting because I always tell people I had to train myself to be an extrovert. I used to be this incredible introvert
Hmm.
who had to masquerade as an extrovert, and now he's an ambivert. But no, it was because I had that internal like self like ugh, I don't know who wants to hear me. That doubt, that perfection that everything that you need to
Hmm.
be perfect before you do that. So yeah, those are the stories. I think that dealing with how to be a multi-passionate millennial while also being brave enough to share your voice. And it's a learning process, and I do my best every day. But I think the moments I get when I get emails from people who listen to the podcast
Hmm.
always remind me that I need to do that. To do that, I've gotten emails from people telling me I didn't know that the people that look like you do this kind of stuff, and I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to listen because of that. I got an
Hmm.
email from someone else that said, I'm like a 40 something. This is like older than me. I'm like a 40 something year old woman, and I grew up like in all these countries, and I still haven't found my identity. But listen to your stories help me stay one way. And then I feel so selfish when I read that. I'm like, so I'm worried about how my voice sounds and how I'm doing this, and there are all these people out there who could benefit from this. And
Hmm.
then it just sort of corrects things in the focus. But I can't say that I've fully mastered it. But yeah, those would be struggles, I guess.
Yeah, no, those are definitely real struggles. I guess kind of, I think it's so interesting how, it takes time before you get that initial email. It takes time. I remember
Yeah.
when I first started my business and people are like, "Well, what are people emailing you asking you?" I'm like, nobody's emailed me anything yet. Am I doing something wrong?" Like, and
Uh,
and it was still kind of that same fear, like, should I put this out yet? It's not totally perfect yet. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should be focusing on this other passion. I don't know what people want to hear from me. And,
yeah.
and so, again, I always encourage people, if you guys are listening to this, if you listen to Teo's podcast, if you listen to this vlog, reach out to us, let us know so that we can keep going, because it's just as nerve-wracking for us putting it out here as the thought for you going ahead and taking that leap. And so it's kind of, I always say, like, walking through that fear and walking through that discomfort,
Mm.
and hopefully that email or like that person will reach out to you and say, "Hey, this is really helping me out."
Yeah, it's the best feel. I remember my one of my favorite feelings was when I started getting comments beyond my mom. Because it used to be just my mom, I love you, son, love you, son. And I would look at the comment like, oh, I'm sure it's mom. And then it was someone else. It was like, ah, it has reached the internet, even though it was on the internet. But it was just a great feeling. But yeah, it's great. It's just Steve Harvey always says, this is not a guy I love. Says you have to jump.
Mhm.
And then he says when you jump, it's not that it's going to be the easiest ride. You're going to fall down, crumble, hit all these rocks and bumps. But it's really better to have a life for that you can say I did it than say what if. And
Mhm.
you don't want to be the guy that's saying like what if I did that? And all those rocks and stumbles are actually preparation for you if you stay through to figuring out what you really can do with your gifts.
It's so true. And on that note, because I don't think we could end this any more beautifully, um, thank you so much for being a guest today. I'll make sure to include all the ways to get in touch with Teo in the comments below this, or if you're reading this on the blog, in the blogs. So, have a safe flight. He's off traveling to Louisiana tomorrow or in a few hours, so he made time for us. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, anything for you. Anything for you right now. Anything for you. I'm happy to do it. So thank you for the honor of having me on your show, and I can't wait to see what this blows up into.